to thank everyone for coming out. There's some water to my left. There's some munchkins over there. I'd like to thank the library for setting this up. They've been really helpful. Marcy's not here today, but she's been really a big help. And I'd like to thank my sister Kim and my mom. I went over there this morning to use their printer last minute. I sent my sister a text message very early that said, "I am having a poetry emergency." So I'm not sure how many of those she gets. So I was talking to my son the other day about music. I really feel like it's a dad's job to introduce their kids to music that they'll hate. And I also think it's a dad's job to introduce them to things they'll love and that mom will hate, like the Three Stooges. So anyway, we were talking about the alt-country band Wilco and the deconstruction of the American song. Well, I was talking about that and he was pretending to listen, and not very convincingly. So we went from Wilco to Tom Waits, and I eventually played him some Gillian Welch. If you don't know her, check her out. She's this amazing Americana singer-songwriter, just fabulous stuff. And she has this song that my son does like called One Little Song. And the lyrics in part, "There's got to be a song left to sing, 'cause everybody can't have thought of everything. One little drop of fallen rain, one little chance to try again, and one little bird that makes it every now and then." And that's what poetry is to me. It's the one little bird that makes it every now and then. We can write and write. Maybe we write 15 poems and only think one is any good. And that one that you do like, you have no idea how to make that happen again. That's the bird that made it. It's easy to get discouraged, to be too busy to try, to say I'm not good enough, it won't be good, why should I bother? But everybody can't have thought of everything. And that's where you and I come in. You have to be open and try, because that's what we have. In life, our work, our art, all of it. We can only try. And just maybe one little bird will make it through every now and then. So thank you all again. I'd like to read a couple of short poems to get us started off, and then we'll start with our extensive open mic list. This is Untitled September. I don't know how many of you use the library services to order books on their network, but it's pretty handy. They email you when they come in, so I like to receive those emails that say your hold is ready, so that's kind of where this stems from. It's like waiting for you to come home after dinner and drinks with your friends, somewhere with classic cocktails and expensive IPAs. Used to be just drinks, but age waits for none of us, so now there are carbs again. Or like walking into daycare to pick up our daughter, so headstrong, so loud, so amazing, so you, and then some. The anticipation starts with the email from the library. Your hold is ready for pickup. The book I've been waiting for, post-apocalyptic modern western, with heroes and villains, angels and devils, dusty trucks, gasoline and lovers, only memories, and a dog ever faithful. I like haiku very much, and I try to write it, though I'm not sure what I'm about to read would be technically haiku. They're pretty close. So I'll read a few short ones, and I'll leave a little pause between each of them so you know that it's not one long, strange poem. The cat on the bed ignores the moon through the frosted window. All those birds and flowers, a book of haiku in an empty apartment. Among the clover with Emily Dickinson counting honeybees. This house, how like a ship, set adrift on a sea of pollen. Salaryman, who are the sunflowers for? Stems celery thick. I'd like to ask my son Miles to come up, be our first reader. Thank you.
This is a rainbow point of view. Sometimes I'm happy, sometimes I'm sad. Mostly I'm happy from all of my colors. But when I'm sad, I'm hidden behind the clouds. When the sun comes out, my bucket fills to the tippity top. When the sun goes down to its point, it's time to go to a dreamy night. Thank you.
Sure. Mr. Howe?
How much time do I have? I don't want to take up everybody's time.
No, feel free.
Since you started with a library poem, I'll start with a library poem too. This is called Prepping for the Library Book Sale. I dug down into the recesses of my shelves. What could I spare? Who should I pass by? I grabbed one here, one there. The print in this too fine for my flailing blue eyes. I took some, left some, put some back. The newcomers from last year took up too precious space. I sent them back. The bags became so heavy, the handles broke. I had to repack everything. I took them to the library, right here. Glad to be done. And as I went through the door, the church bells across the street struck 6. Ask not, I told the books, for whom the bell tolls. In the shadow of the toll house, they toll for you. Little Dorrit and his buddy Dombey hid out in the corner of the bookcase, smoking weed and discounting rumors. They woke up to find that Chuzzlewit was missing and others of the Dickens clan. A groping cyclops hand plucked them from their sheepish hidey hole, still ready for a hard time read. I conveyed them in a special trip. At the sale I saw some of my refugees, some being pawed by patrons, some shoved into a corner, not making waves, looking like they were wearing discarded overcoats, those old English penguins, uncomfortable children. Poor Dorrit didn't even make it to the big room. I found him spinning on a squeaky roundabout next to the front door. I thought he cast me a reproving eye, but what can you do? If you don't get out of the company today, who knows what worse a fare fate may spin. So it's March. This is a poem for the end of March, but it's the beginning of March, so I guess I can do it anyway. It's called Like a White Hare. March is going out like a parade, a panjandrum, a pariah mad as an ellipsis, as an astronaut left on the gibbous moon as the tide recedes, mad as a tea party in the White House as the tea runs out, the parallel tracks converge. Me, I'm mad as a hatter, a Mercury riding windshield splatter, mad as a heretic, mad as a heel. I'll be out on the driveway shoveling invisible snow on the 1st. The neighbors won't fool me this time with snowblow heroics and teaspoon fine edges. I'll be finally the first, the frostbitten worst, shoveling nothing over and over my shoulder and losing forever the last holy mitten while March is out like a match. I go to a lot of poetry readings, and people are always reading about their cats and their dogs. And I don't have pets, and I don't want pets, and I keep trying to tell people I don't want pets, and they keep saying, you need a pet to keep you company. And I say, no, I don't want a pet. So last year I adopted a spider who was living in my kitchen window between the inside pane and the outside pane, and I called her Niobe. And I wrote some poems about the spider so that when people read all their cat poems, I could counter with spider poems and make them feel really creepy. Niobe went down, clinging to the moon like a lost astronaut. It's November, the time that seasonal pets wrap it up, as if she could draw heat from the net she wove. The net that her 65 October children crawled out of, clinging shroud-like to her threads until the gale weaseled them off. That's the thing about accidental pets. They are tears on ice, and through the window we watch them crimp in lonely choir. She stayed with me for almost a year, from summer, and I was really hoping that she was going to make it. She made it all the way through the winter. I was really surprised, because it was a cold winter and everything. And then it got to be almost Mother's Day, and She used to work right over the kitchen sink, and my mother, I always remembered, because I'm living in the same house, her standing at the sink, washing clothes out in the kitchen and doing the dishes. And so I sort of associated Niobe, my spider, with my mother there. But I came out, and it was just before Mother's Day, and my spider was gone. I don't know what happened. So I wrote this poem called Missing Niobe. A beautiful hot week of May, pre-Mother's Day, but Niobe has walked out on me. No sign of B&E on the windowsill, no ransom demand, no eyewitness. There was no fond note, no tearful cry. Farewell, goodbye, auf Wiedersehen. I'm off to see the Wizard of Ooze spiders. No, get a life, Al. I put up posters all over the neighborhood, tiny ones. Lost, missing, house spider, 1 year old, answers to the name Niobe. Homebody, likes nest flicks, 8-legged freaks, tarantula. It was that first fraught fly of spring that did her in. It must have set her off, or maybe it had been high itself. Maybe Niobe died. I don't know why. I'm not an arachnid vet. I miss my feral pet. She took no luggage, left her clutter, bug mummies, gnats, and butterfly remains. I won't sweep up. Her sailboat web will soon be rent, but the unpaid token rent is moot. I miss her quiet ways, someone to say good morning to. Does that make me an arachnid gook? I'm just suffering from empty nest blues. It's been a week and things around the house are bleak. Come back, Niobe, day or night. The light is on, nothing is foreclosed. I listen for your tiptoe steps, your spin. The empty larder will soon fill up. Come back. I got time for one more? Where's the other bookmark? There it is. This is called A Poem at the End of the Universe. This is for all those people who have poetry printing emergencies. Last month I wrote a poem that was so beautiful the universe almost ended. I didn't mean it. I thought it was just a poem, a reader's gift. My printer and my computer had a quarrel last year, a romantic feud like the vacuum and the toaster oven. So when it was written, I copied it to disk and I went to the library, the last floppy drive in town. The system took all my other poems. I insisted, but the terminal quavered. I returned the next day with new floppies. These hiccuped an awesome quake. I could not believe I had written a poem so mighty. On the third day, a message in a box popped up. Warning. The last time we tried to print this poem, we experienced severe problems. We saw what you had written and feared. Half our staff were taken ill and left for the day. We realized system failure was imminent. The hypnagogic internet might collapse. The night shift would never see the dawn. The entire universe could collapse upon itself. Do you want to continue printing? I thought very long and very hard, but I clicked, no. I was so delighted, and I went skipping home, hugging my secret to myself. Then I started over. I hand-typed the same text under a new, abstract name. The timid machine swallowed it meekly, not a burp. So no, when you read a poem called Fruit Bowl with Melon, you will be reading the masked version of the fatal poem. If beauty is skin deep, then I have skinned this poem and dressed it as a scarecrow. But I ask myself, should I print this poem? Or is a reference to the word as bad as the word itself? I might set in motion something I cannot stop. Maybe the tiny disc police, Old Spin and Mosey, might turn up at my door with lariats and laughter. How do we know when information's lost? Thanks.
The next name on my list is a Whitman resident, Marie Cottonley.
Most of you know that Shawn is my son, and he has a twin sister, Kimberly. And when they were young, I used to write a few poems. And this one I wrote for my daughter, Kimberly. You're my precious little girl. I love you like no other. The greatest thing I've done on earth was to become your mother. You've made me happy as can be, on that you can depend. My love grows deeper every day, I'm sure it has no end. And this is for my son Shawn. Stay a child a little longer, time flies too quickly by. Every day you're growing stronger, what happened to my little guy? You're strong of mind and strong of heart, I'm proud that you're my son. But I think that from the very start, I've been the lucky one. One more?
Big time crunch.
This is called Little One. A tiny tot with eyes so blue reaches up and touches you. His eyes implore, I need you so. Please pick me up and don't let go. You lift him gently and hold him tight. He's happy now, he'll be all right.
Does anybody else want to read anything?
I'll try something.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Put my glasses on. My name is Ed Sherman, and live in Whitman for about 15 years now. And since we're entering into the baseball season, one of my favorite poems is Casey at the Bat. I don't know how many people know Casey at the Bat, but you know there was 3 sequences to Casey at the Bat. What's Casey at the Bat, Casey's Revenge, and Casey 20 years later. So I'm going to try, I used to know this Casey at the Bat by memory. I'm going to see how far I can go on it. Okay. It looked extremely rocky for the Mudville 9 that day. Score stood 2-4, with but an inning left to play. But Coney died at second, and Burrows did the same. Apollo reads the features of the patrons of the game. A straggler few got up to go, leaving there the rest, with that hope that springs eternal within the human breast. For they thought if Casey could get a whack at that, they'd put even money now with Casey at the bat. But Flynn preceded Casey, and likewise so did Blake. Former was the puddin', and the latter was the fake. So on that stricken multitude of death-like silence sat, for they seemed but little chance of Casey getting to the bat. But Flynn let drive a single to the wonderment of all, and a much-despised Casey tore the cover off the ball. And when the dust had lifted and they saw what had occurred, there was Blakey safe at second and Flynn a hugging third. And from the glad multitude went up a joy itself. It rumbled in the mountain tops, it rattled in the dell. It struck upon the hillside and rebounded in the flat. For Casey, mighty Casey, was advancing to the bat. There was ease in Casey's manner as he stepped into his place, a smile on Casey's belly and a smile on Casey's face. And when responding to the cheers, he lightly doffed his hat. No stranger in the crowd could doubt was Casey at the bat. And now when the withering pitcher ground the ball into his hip, defiance gleamed in Casey's eyes, a sneer curled Casey's lips. And now the leather-covered sphere came hurling through the air, and Casey stood watching it in haughty grandeur there. And by the sturdy batsman the ball unheeded sped. Ain't my style, said Casey. Strike one, the umpire said. Fraud, cried the maddening thousands, and the echo answered fraud. But one scornful look from Casey, and the audience was awed. They saw his face go cold and stern, they saw his muscles strain, and they knew that Casey wouldn't let the ball go by again. That's it, kind of good up there with every MA. With a smile of Christian charity, great Casey's vision shone. He still arised in torment, he made the game go on. He signaled to the pitcher, and once more the spheroid flew. But Casey still ignored it, and the umpire said, strike two. Fraud, cried the maddening thousands, and the echo answered fraud. But one scornful look from Casey, and the audience was awed. They saw his face go cold and stern. They saw his muscles strain. And they knew that Casey wouldn't let the ball go by again. The sneer was gone from Casey's lips, his teeth are clenched in hate. He pounds with cool benches bat upon the plate. And now the pitcher holds the ball, and now he lets it go. And now the pitcher holds, now he lets it go. And now the air is shattered by the force of Casey's blow. Oh, somewhere in this favorite land the sun is shining bright. The band is playing somewhere. And somewhere men are laughing, and somewhere children shout. But there's no joy in Boston. Mighty Casey has struck out. Into that. But there's the sequel to it. I can read this one. Casey, 20 years later. And this is the Bugville team. The Bugville team was surely up against a rocky game. The chances were they'd win defeat and undying fame. 3 men were hurt, 2 were benched. The score stood 6-4. They had to make 3 hard-earned runs in just 2 innings more. It can't be done, the captain said, a pallor on his face. I've got 2 pitchers in the field, a mutt on second base. And should another man get spiked or crippled in some way, the team should be down and out with 8 men left to play. We're up against it anyhow, as far as I can see. My boys ain't hitting like they should, and that's what worries me. The luck is with the other side. No pennant will we win. It's mighty tough, but we must take our medicine and grin. The eighth round opened, 1, 2, 3. The enemy went down. The Bugville boys went out the same. The captain wore a frown. The last half of the 9th came round. 2 men had been called out. When Bugville's catcher broke a thumb and could not go the route. A death-like silence o'er the crowd assembled there. Defeat would be a lot of them, but they felt it in the air. With only 8 men in the field, 'twould be a gruesome fray. Small wonder that the captain cursed the day he learned to play. Lend me a man to finish with, he begged the other team. Lend you a man, the foe replied. My boy, you're in a dream. We want to win the pennant too. That's what we're here to do. There's only one thing you can do, call for a volunteer. The captain stood and pondered in a listless sort of way. He never was a quitter and would not be today. Is there within the grandstands here, his voice rang loud and clear, a man who has the sporting blood to be a volunteer? Again that awful silence said, o'er the multitude. Was there a man among them with such recklessness imbued? The captain stood with cap in hand, while the hopeless was his glance. And then a short and stocky man cried out, I'll take a chance. Into the field he bounded with steps both firm and light. Give me the mitt and mask, he said. Let's finish up the fight. The game is now beyond recall. I'll last at least a round. Although I'm ancient, you will find me muscular and sound. His hair was sprinkled here and there with little streaks of gray. Around his eyes and on his brow, a bunch of wrinkles lay. The captain smiled despairingly and slowly turned away. Why, he's all right, one Rudy yelled. Another, let him play. Oh, all right, go on, the captain sighed. The stranger turned around, took off his coat and collar too, and threw them on the ground. The humor of the situation seemed to hit them all. And as he donned the mask and mitt, the umpire called, play ball. 3 balls the pitches Adam hurled, 3 balls of lightning speed. The stranger caught them all with ease and did not seem to heed. Each ball had been pronounced a strike, the side had been put out. And as he walked in towards the bench, he heard the rooters shout. The Bugville boys were out on strikes, and one was killed at first. The captain saw his awkward pose and gashed his teeth and cursed. The 3rd man smashed a double, and the 4th man swatted clear. Then in the thunder of applause, up came the volunteer. His feet were planted in the earth, he swung a walleye club, and the captain saw his awkward pose and softly whispered, dub. The pitcher looked at him and grinned, and then heaved a mighty ball. The echo of that fearful swat still lingers with us all. High, fast, and far the spheroid flew. It sailed and sailed away. It ne'er was found, so it's supposed. It still floats on today. 3 runs came in. The pennant would be Bugville for a year. The fans gather round to cheer the volunteer. What is your name? The captain asked. Tell us your name, cried all. And down his cheek great tears were seen to run and fall. For one brief moment he was still, then murmured soft and low, I'm mighty Casey, who struck out 20 years ago. Casey at the back. This one here was written by J.P. McDonald. The first one, Casey at the Bat, was written by Lawrence Thomas Thayer around the 1880s when baseball was really at it. That was before football became popular. Of course, there wasn't any soccer or any hockey or anything like that. But there was a team in Boston, and I think it was the beginning of the Red Sox, actually. They cost the Boston 9 or something like that. And it was a man by the name of Kelly, and he was a home run hitter. And supposedly Thayer used him as a subject for Casey at the Bat, but he always denied it. And this Lawrence Thomas Thayer, he went to Harvard and became a writer for the Randolph Hearst newspaper syndicate in San Francisco, and he used to write a column there, and he wrote many poems. But that's the only, I got this out of a book, and you can find all these poems online. There's Casey at the Bat, Casey's Revenge, and Casey 20 years later.
Awesome.
So that's that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have to leave.
I'll read 1 or 2 more, and then we can, if Mr. Howe would like to go again, or we can wrap it up. I think I'd be remiss to not read a poem that I wrote for my fiancée, who tolerates me buying fountain pens and more notebooks than I'll ever be able to fill. This is called Food Dogs. Food dogs are considered the guardians of the Buddha. They're like sort of consorts for the Buddha. They're the giant red lion, half dog looking statues you see outside Chinese restaurants. Anyway, it's called Food Dogs. You are in the kingdom of night, where the threads of the day spin out in gossamer strings. As your eyes fall closed, your bed becomes a sturdy wooden boat, flowers painted on the sides, or a chariot made from tree branches still green and ripe with fruit. This world is a soap bubble, a mirage in a place of sand. And to you I send angels, devas, food dogs, and bodhisattvas to peruse your books while you sleep and to check in on you from time to time. The angels can be kind of serious, and the bodhisattvas fierce, or laughing oddly enough. But the food dogs are content at the feet of the devas, and they sleep rather well for escorts. I'm going to do one for my son. So we're on the kick here. It's called Time Travel, 4 miles. On your 6th birthday, while Pat Metheny and Charlie Hayden duet in the background, I write of walking out the door and going back inside to pick out a book and leaving with 3. I bring selected poems by Robert Creeley, who I want to be in love with, but who hasn't moved me yet, except for making me break stanzas up in this way that drags you, thusly, to read the poem in the above manner. I bring Buddhist wisdom, which doesn't make me consider line breaks at all, only emptiness. I am familiar with emptiness, but not friends with it. If I were an employee of the universe, it would just be some guy that I work with. There's emptiness in a glass, in a dive bar with great crispy pizza where I read the new Charles Fraser. And there's the emptiness that swallows me when I say goodbye to you on Sundays outside my apartment next to the school. But the eternal emptiness, the void, the nothing, the no thing, that is the one that I fear, and the one that is the essence of the Heart Sutra. And on this day of your birthday, I also leave apartment 2 within the skin of a lion, this beautiful book that I can't quite finish and don't quite want to, with its young actresses peeling off shirts to let the rain raise bumps on their skin, while they flirt with Patrick, who has rock and coal dust under his fingernails, and a map of the great Canadian North Woods printed on his heart. I carry these three with me, but what goes with me are flashes of you eating bites of stuffed French toast, of you with your hair messed up and sleep in your eyes, of you opening presents at the kitchen table, and of you walking into the front door of the center school with confidence and no looking back. Thank you. Close with a short one, if that's all right. This is called Winter Horses. There's a poem I'm looking for. Help me if you know it. I checked the usual places, the table of contents of my Norton anthology, and every page of my City Lights pocket collection. I may have been drinking something barrel-aged, hence my confusion. It was something about a striking male horse, white with brown splashes, standing alone in the corral, stamping the ground distractedly, watching the breath smoke from his nostrils, standing alone on a winter's afternoon. That's going to be it for me. Did you want to read again?
I can do another poem I can do.
Okay. Let Mr. Howe back up.
Then I could get two munchkins.
Sorry?
Then I could get two munchkins.
Right. Yeah, double munchkin ration if you read.
Okay, this is called The Optimistic Traveler. It's another animal poem. It's October, season of descent. I'm on my way home from the library, my car loaded with junky books. Addiction to reading is upon me again. But as I am coming down the hill on Beulah, out of my right eye I see a prancing squirrel. He bounces across the green bucolic lawn to the edge of the asphalt road, and he dashes. He gets to the center white line and he stops. I have had it with these suicidal squirrels. The one at the Avon Baptist and the 12824 massacre. Show them a rolling tire and they button hook right into it. If you remembered my saga of the 79 Chevy Karma the skunk in the personal ads, you'll know. So I think I am not going to take this anymore. I stopped the car, prepared to wait him out. I have books. I have the Pevyar Volokonsky translation of Tolstoy's War and Peace. I can wait. But with my left eye, I see a car turning off school, heading uphill. Will he floor it? The squirrel looks right and sees that car. The squirrel looks left and sees my car. You just know that he suffers from terminal depression and wanton indecision. He will wait until exactly the worst moment to make the worst decision of his juvie life. Corporate law or special forces. But no, the other car stops too. We stare at the squirrel, patient until Fuzzy gets bored. He lopes, Davy bravely across Beulah to the second half of life. Our two cars glide into motion. We wave, pleased to have saved this young fool's skin. I brag. So now Santa Claus is coming to town. He and the elves owe me big time. I am headed home from, yes, the library. I come over the hill on Beulah. There is my squirrel, slapped flat line on the white line, squishy in the asphalt, 1 green yard away from home. I punch the wheel with my 2 fists. Does anybody ever learn? Even me. You just can't keep bloody karma off your back. That's it.
Thank you. All right, well, thanks everybody, and have a nice weekend.